You are listening to the We Are Not Safe for Work podcast. Your hosts, Renee and Nadja, will dive into all the different reasons why some entrepreneurs become unemployable.
Hello, Nadja.
Hello, Renee.
So I saw on Facebook that you are one step closer to being a citizen, by the way.
Oh my gosh, yes. So I had my citizenship interview and civics test yesterday, which I passed. Thank you very much. I was a little nervous about the civics test because there were some things that, I haven't really thought about since I took government in school. And
Yeah. Oh my God.
yeah, so having to kind of like dig back into the recesses of my memory for that information was a little nerve-wracking, but thankfully the questions that I received, because basically the civics test is out of, like, they ask you up to 10 questions and you need to get 6 of them right. And
Oh,
yeah, so I got asked 6 questions because I got them all right. He didn't have to continue with 4 more questions. He was
well,
like,
that's
"Yeah,
amazing.
yeah." So I was excited about that. There is one last step though. I have to do my
Okay.
oath taking ceremony. So I need to go back next week, and by the time this podcast episode is released, I will officially be a US citizen. But yeah,
Yay.
I had to
I
do an
do.
oath taking ceremony. It is at the ass crack of dawn though. It's at
Oh
7:30.
my
I
God.
have to be there at 7:30 in the morning to
Oh
basically
no,
say the
that's
Pledge of
terrible.
Allegiance, and then they give me my paperwork that says you are officially a US citizen and you can vote and you can get a US passport and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, 7:30 in the morning. And with Houston rush
That's
hour
amazing.
traffic, that means I'm gonna have to leave by, 7 o'clock at the latest to get there by 7:30.
Mhm.
But if I want to take into account, buffer time for traffic or something, any sort of delays or whatever, I'm gonna have to leave the house by like 6:45.
God, that's crazy. I can't remember the last time I got up that early.
Well,
That's
right?
horrible.
Like, I did
Um,
not start working for myself so that I can be driving somewhere at like 6 in the 6 o'clock AM hour range. Like, that's not what I signed up for. That's the reason why I stopped working in
no,
corporate.
absolutely not. Yeah, totally. Um, Thank God I didn't have to take a government test to become a citizen. I was just born here. I was
Mhm.
so insanely fortunate. Um, was there a question that, like, one of the questions that really surprised you or
Well,
that you found particularly challenging?
not
I
I
know you
mean,
got them all 6 right, so probably not, but
yeah, and on, like, they give you a list of the questions that they could ask, right? Um, so
Mhm.
you get a list of 100 possible questions you could be asked. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, and some of them are, they're pretty basic, like, what is it? When did we declare independence from England or whatever? And it's like, "Oh, that
Mm,
was
mhm.
1776." And to be specific,
Right.
July 4th, 1776. But one of the questions, which always threw me off, even when I took government in school, was, when was the Constitution written? Because in your head, you think, "Oh, the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, like, they must have written it, like, at the same time, right?" No, they didn't. It was, like, 11
I
years
honestly
later.
don't know the answer to this question.
Yes, it's,
When was the Constitution written?
1787. So it was 11 years
Oh,
later.
wow.
Yeah.
That's right. See, no, I would have failed. Yeah.
One of my favorite
So
questions,
you'll
though,
have
when they were going through, or when I was looking through the list, because I had my husband kind of like answer some of them, since I had the list of 100 questions they could ask. And some of them he
mhm.
was like, "Oh, well, this is what I would respond with." And they are looking for very specific answers. For example, the question is, what is Benjamin Franklin known for? That's the question. What is Benjamin Franklin known for?
Well, that's a trick question. I would say the light bulb.
So the
I
what
know
they're
that's not the answer they're looking for.
it's not what they're looking for. They're looking for very specific answers. Like my husband said, "Oh, well, like the kite and lightning, right?"
Right.
Yeah, that's what he's really known for. That's not what they're
He's
looking for.
known for being the president of the United States, right?
It's some of the things that he is what they're looking for is he was the first postmaster general. He
Was he
found
really?
he founded yes, he founded the first free libraries. He was the founder of free
Oh, I did not know
libraries.
that.
He was the oldest in age to be part of something. See, I can't even remember what it was because all I remembered in my head was, okay, I need to memorize the libraries because libraries for sure is going to come up, and then the postmaster general. Like those are the two things that I decided I'm going to memorize those two things. But
Wait,
yeah,
was he not a president?
uh, Franklin? No, he was not a president.
Oh, see, there you go. I fail.
Wait,
Yeah.
let's make sure. Was Benjamin Franklin a president? He was the only president who was never president. Yep. He never held the office of presidency. So
I'm
there you go,
literally
Renee.
speechless on a podcast.
He was
Okay.
he was not a president.
Amazing. Okay. Well,
Yep.
maybe they'll hear this and kick me out. I don't know. Hopefully I
No.
get to go to Canada.
You'll be fine. You're fine.
Yeah. Um,
But
that's
yes,
interesting. Well,
so I will be
congratulations.
thank you. I will definitely be practicing the rights that I earn as a citizen. As soon as everything is finalized, I will be registering to vote and I will be voting. I will be a
Amen.
voting member. I'm just saying, I know it's a lot of people think, "Oh, it's just voting," but no, I want to be part of the
You're
decision
here for it.
here.
That's right. No, I'm glad because you're an informed voter, and I think that really matters.
Thank you.
So,
I try to be.
I'm excited. I think it's great. We need more of you guys, more of us voting in Texas for sure. And so
Yes.
that's very exciting.
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm very happy for you. So that'll be
Thank you.
2 passports that you have now, right?
Yes, I will be a dual passport holder. I feel like a spy,
Right.
like being able to have multiple passports.
Is it possible for you to get a passport for the Philippines as well,
I had
if
to
you
be
wanted
a
to?
citizen of the Philippines. Even though I was born in the Philippines, I gave up my
Okay.
citizenship when we moved to Australia and became Australian citizens. So,
Okay. Okay.
mhm.
Okay.
So right
Yeah.
now I could not apply for a Filipino passport, even though I have my birth certificate is, from the Philippines and everything like that. But
Right.
because we gave up our
Right.
citizenship to become Australian citizens, I would have to go through the
Mhm.
process of citizenship for the Philippines.
Is it possible to hold 3 passports? Like, do you know
If
people that do that or of
If your
people?
countries allow multiple citizenships, yes. Because I know
Okay.
that for a little while, Australia, like you could not hold dual citizenship in Australia. I don't remember when that changed, but I do know that it was not during the time frame where like when we first got our green card and then we became eligible for citizenship. I want to say
Mhm.
during that time, we couldn't do dual citizenship with Australia because they would only allow dual citizenship between Australia and the UK.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
hmm
Well,
But
that's
now,
cool.
but
Well,
now they've opened it
congratulations.
up, so I can do dual citizenship for both. So that's what I'm gonna do. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's so exciting. I'm really
Yep.
happy for you.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to congratulate you on that. Which kind of in a way ties into what we're going to talk about because it's just one more thing to keep up with now
Oh,
because you're going to have
absolutely. Yeah.
your passport for that, you're going to have any documentation for that, you're going to have to get your voter ID, you know, just more stuff to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
Um so the topic that we're going to discuss today is I decided yesterday to declare password bankruptcy is what I'm calling it. I don't know what else to call it. Because I was trying to sort through some digital accounts, and I was trying. Actually, what I was really trying to do, I didn't even tell you this in our pre-talk, but what I was trying to do was install Slack on one of my iPads,
Okay.
but I couldn't remember how I log into Slack because I haven't installed Slack for so long that it just opens up overnight because it's magic. Computers are
Mhm.
magic.
Yeah.
And so it just opens up on my other computers, but I wanted it on my iPad. And the reason that I wanted it on my iPad was because I was trying to get to a link that was in my Slack. Um,
Oh, okay.
but I couldn't. Yeah. So I actually just wanted it for a completely different purpose, not because I wanted to use Slack, but I wanted to use a piece of information that was in Slack.
Mhm.
But I couldn't remember how to get into my Slack. So it said it was going to send me an email link. Well, I didn't have email set up on my iPad because I couldn't remember my email password.
Oh my gosh.
So
It's a vicious
I
cycle,
know.
isn't
So
it?
it is. So I couldn't remember my email password. So I couldn't set up my email on my iPad so that I
Mhm.
could get the email from Slack
Mhm.
to get to the data that I wanted from Slack.
Oh my goodness.
So I realized all of this was just turning into this vicious cycle because I keep all my emails in LastPass,
Uh-huh.
but I couldn't get to my LastPass password because it was behind a different password
Oh my gosh.
protection thing that I
Mhm.
didn't have that information because I didn't have my LastPass. So I was like in this vicious loop and it was getting so insane. So I was going to my desktop to try to get the passwords for the things to the iPad. And of course, by the time I got to all of that, the Slack email link had expired.
Sure.
So I had to start over, by the way. But
Yeah, yeah.
I got so bad that I just got out a pen and paper. I've been paperless for years now. I
Mhm.
usually use all of my notes on my iPad and keep all my notes there. But I got out a pen and paper and just started writing notes of this account is attached to this thing. And the reason that I was doing all of that, the thing I was trying to get to in the Slack was we were trying to get to a Twitter login because we realized that we had Twitter accounts that were associated to the wrong email addresses. And then Twitter was
Mhm.
wanting to email us. And so Andy and I were trying to share information back and forth in Slack
Right.
because she was doing one Twitter account, one email address, while I was trying to do another. So I was the baseline of all of it was trying to get into Twitter or X. I'm so sorry.
I was gonna say, what is Twitter? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know. Um, so then
You're
finally I was
showing
like,
your
okay,
age,
this Twitter
Renee.
account. I know. So I just started writing on paper. Okay, here's all of my Twitter accounts. Here's the usernames. Here's the
Mhm.
emails they're associated to. Here's all my email accounts. And I was starting to try to make a map. And I realized, Nadja, please, God, tell me what to do to fix this problem because now I'm in hell. And I know this is a common problem that we all have.
Yeah, it's not
And
a
how
unique
do we fix it?
problem.
What do we do?
So, yeah, so here is the big problem with password managers like LastPass, KeyPass, OnePass, all the pass things, right? There is no way for you to kind of map out exactly what you were saying that you were doing. Like, here are all of my Twitter
Right.
accounts, and this is how, like, these are the email addresses associated with it, right? It's just a list. You type in Twitter, and then it shows you, here are all of the Twitter logins that you have saved inside of me. But there's nowhere
Correct.
for you to be able to like specify these are for this company, these are my personal accounts. Like, you can't categorize it like that unless you know to do that ahead of time, right? Like,
Right.
there's no easy way to do it, and typically the only reason you find out later on that you should have organized it is because you get into a situation like you are now where you're like, okay, but
Yeah.
was this business account associated with my personal email, or was it only connected to my business email address? So having all of that mapped out is not something these password managers do because they're just a storage vault. That's all they are, right?
Right.
You put all the stuff in there, you close the door, you lock it, and then you're like, okay, well, hopefully I can find what I need later on. I don't know how much I can talk about it. I'll have to ask them. But me and my team are currently in the process
Mhm.
of helping a company test how to store and share sensitive information, not just passwords and logins. We're talking
Right.
sensitive documents like, I'm sure, like a lot of other online business owners, everybody is using either Google Drive and or Dropbox and or Microsoft OneDrive, like to share,
Or and/or iCloud
and
and/or
or
yeah,
iCloud,
exactly.
right, yeah, so you have all of these different places that you can save information, but then you have to think, well, like, exactly how safe is the information in each of these platforms? Because for us, me and my team, we have to be very careful about HIPAA,
Right.
we have healthcare clients. And so we need to make sure anywhere that we store anything that could potentially be protected health information or provide access to protected health information is stored behind something that is HIPAA compliant. Like, we are very, very strict about that because I don't want to get fined like for violating HIPAA. I don't want our clients to get fined for violating HIPAA because they're not small monetary fines. Like, we're talking, millions of dollars as a fine depending on how much
Yeah.
information has been exposed. And then on top of that, like, you also want to make sure that you are protecting the protected health information of what you are privileged to have access to, right? So you want to make sure that all
Right.
of that is
Right.
locked down. And I think it's really relevant now, especially with all of the, I don't know if you saw the cyber attacks that happened at MGM and Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so
No, I didn't.
they got hit with cyber attacks. Caesar's Palace was hit first, and they paid a couple of $1 million to get out of it. But at the same time, it's
Was
like,
it one of
okay,
those ransom things?
yes, it was the
Oh, yeah.
cyber attack ransomware kind of stuff. Um, and
Yeah.
this was a
Okay.
major casino, so it's kind of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
from a casino standpoint, I can see, do I want to have all of my systems shut down to where people can't gamble, they can't get into their hotel rooms, they can't check into hotels, like, do I want to try to fight that? Or do I wanna just pay whatever they're asking for and then get it over and done with, right? But it also sets that
Right.
precedence of, "Oh, well, they're gonna pay, so let's ask for more money next time," or, "Let's not even release what we've hacked into, let's just keep asking for more and more money." But yeah, so
Yeah.
Caesar's
Yeah,
Palace got
totally.
hit, and then MGM got hit, and I think from the last information that I've read about it, MGM is still kind of battling with some of the after effects of that cyber attack. Not necessarily from their casino standpoint. I don't think their casinos themselves were affected, like the machines, like people could still gamble because in Vegas, that's the number one thing, right? You want people to be spending their money.
Right.
Um, but there were issues with like hotels, like the checking in. People could either not check in or they couldn't get into their hotels, like their hotel rooms, because everything is
The rooms?
key
Yeah.
card digitized, right? And so you've got to think about it in the whole grand scheme of how big of a digital footprint do you have? And this company that we're working with is all about making it more efficient for people, not just business owners, but like you and me as just people who have logins to stuff, right? Like, you create a login to
Yeah.
access your water bill or, to log into your bank account and stuff like that. So just the daily users, making it really simple for everyone to use, save the important information, and then be able to share it securely. So, I am super excited. Like, I can't wait for them to launch because I will tell everyone about them. I'm loving all of the features that they're adding on the back end, the simplicity. And then the peace of mind on top of that, knowing that this makes it really, really difficult for people to hack into, because this particular company has worked with the Department of Defense, so they've worked on
Hmm.
like cybersecurity projects with like NORAD and stuff like that. So NORAD,
Wow.
I don't know,
Yeah.
Department of
So,
Defense, yeah. So they're legit, like they're legit when it comes to security.
well, that's interesting because, yeah, I pay for LastPass and it's just, it doesn't help at all. Like, I feel like I need a literal map on the wall, in a main living area that's just mapping all of this shit together. And I know all of it. And I think the thing too, and hopefully other people can relate to this, it's all self inflicted.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's because you're in a hurry or you think something's a good idea at the time. Like I was telling you before, we used to have because our LLC is Ralph's Design and Deli, and we used to have that as our email address, but it's so
Mm-hmm.
long and we hated it. So we switched it to Ralph's Media,
Mm-hmm.
which fits our brand better too, because really, um, I get calls constantly from people that are like, think that we're a deli, which makes sense, but we're really a media company. So we changed it to Ralph's Media. So
Yeah.
now I'm basically gone through so, just like most people have, I'm sure. I've
Yeah.
gone through so many variations of email accounts for things that I signed up for long ago that I just got myself into like a decade long mess that
Right, right.
yesterday just kind of
Trying to
finally
unravel it.
hit. And so now, exactly, yeah. And so it's like, what is the best way until this amazing tool launches? How should people map all of this out? What is your method for fixing things like this? Like if I hired you,
Oh
what
my
would your
gosh.
first thing you would do?
Yeah, so to fix things like this, it's a multi-step process. Like I'm going to be honest with
Mhm.
you, it's not easy because what everyone has
Right.
done, not just you, I have done it too. We have created this hodgepodge vault, right? Like you think, "Oh, I'm going to
Yes.
save everything in this one place." Great. So you save everything in one place. But now that you have all of the things in one place, now you're thinking, "Oh, I should have categorized it," right? Like I should have split it up between
Right.
whether
Yeah.
it's clients or like if you're not doing it for business related stuff, it's just your personal stuff. Like, oh, I should have separated out between like these are my things for utilities, these are my things for school related stuff, these are all of my things for like making sure that you categorize it. But you don't think about that in the beginning. All you're thinking is, oh, great, I have one place that I can put everything in and it's sorted by alphabetical order. I can find it, no problem.
Right.
And that's not wrong, but it's also not the best way when you're dealing with so much information. Like, once again, because our digital footprints are so big, like, how often do you change your electric company? Pretty frequently, right? Because you're looking for the best rate. Or how
Right.
often
Yeah.
I mean, you may not change your email address pretty frequently, but let's say that you're going through the different stages of your life. Like if you recall, I am a geriatric millennial. So back in the day,
Yes.
when emails were like first becoming the thing, like my email address was something like icequeen8842 at yahoo.com. Or, like something completely
Yeah, totally.
ridiculous and insane. And then as you get older, and then you're like, oh, I should have a more professional email address because now universities are asking for your email address. Like, I don't want to be sending in my college application and then saying, yes, please email me at Ice Queen, whatever. You want it to be
Right.
your name, right? Like, or something that looks more professional. And then same thing from college to work, like, or college to career. You want to put on your resume an email address that makes you look like a professional. And so just
Yeah.
in that, that's four different versions of an email address if you were just changing it for very specific reasons. But like most geriatric millennials, I'm sure there were like, you probably had, five at least email addresses and they were all for different things.
Yeah, I'm
I mean, at
currently
least that's how I
battling with a
was.
SBC Global email address.
Yes.
SBC Global doesn't even exist anymore, I don't think. But
Yeah.
I still have an email address that I'm trying to desperately switch
Mhm.
things from that one to this other one. I have a Yahoo
Mhm.
that is in the mix. I forgot about Yahoo,
Right.
but apparently Yahoo hasn't forgotten about me.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a Yahoo email address. I don't use it, but I do receive things from it only because back in the day, like my university related correspondence
mhm.
was connected to my Yahoo email address. And so what I did for that was I set up a forwarding. So from my Yahoo email address, it forwards to my current personal email address because it's all
Oh, that's
personal
smart. Yeah.
related. The only downside to that though is email providers have started to make it a bit more difficult to do that, like to forward from other emails that are different domains. So, like from a Yahoo to a Gmail,
Oh, right.
so that connection is not 100% reliable. Um,
Mhm.
but short of like, like what you said, going through your list of, well, these are all of the things that I had associated with this email address. How many people actually remember that? Like, how often do you type in your email address in exchange for access to something? Constantly,
Oh,
right?
all the time.
All the
And by the
time.
way, throw into that when the business that you're dealing with changes their name. So
Exactly.
suddenly your alphabetical list no longer makes sense.
Yes, exactly. And so from the personal, like if just a regular user, you're not even worried about this for business purposes. The biggest
Sure.
tip that I could give is like the actionable item right now, go to your password manager, even if it's a document like a physical notebook, or if you have it saved in Google, or not Google Notes, but in like, in Notes or Google Keep or
Mhm.
whatever, which by the way, please don't save your passwords and stuff like that. Um, and same thing with like a Word document. Please don't save your passwords
I would never do
in a
that.
Word
Never,
document.
ever after this call
Yeah,
do
exactly.
that.
After the
Yeah.
call, please just stop
Yeah.
doing that. Um,
Yeah.
well, it just, what's the point in having a secure password to access something if you're just going to have that information easily accessible to anybody that may be able to come to your house or have access to your
Well, let me
computer?
tell you the point.
I'm
Let
just
me tell
saying.
you the point. Yeah, I know. But let me just tell you the point. Let's say you're sitting in front of your TV and you got a new Apple TV and you can't remember your Apple ID, but you constantly damn need it. And it's a pain in the ass to get into your LastPass to get to your Apple ID. You know what you can do is make sure your phone has no
Uh-huh.
password on it at all so that it's easy to get to.
Mhm.
And then you can just put your Apple user ID and password in your Apple Notes is the very first note that you get. Not that I'm doing this, guys. Don't
No,
steal
of
my
course not.
phone.
No. And
God,
I get
right,
it.
never would I do this.
Like
Yeah,
I get it.
and then
Oh my
suddenly you
gosh.
realize how easy that is to use, so then all the most important passwords that you've ever used in your life are in the first note in your Apple Notes
Mhm.
because it's so hard to remember how to get to anything else.
Yep, yep. Or your
Just
your
saying.
most important logins start with an asterisk, like for as their identifier name, because then it automatically puts them at the top, right? Like instead of
Yes, that's
making it
smart. I haven't
A.
thought of that. That's really good. Yeah,
Ask me how I know
that's really
this.
good.
Because once again,
Yeah.
I am not immune. Like I have done this. And this is the reason why I say and can say with gusto, don't do this. Don't do this because the
Right.
the repercussions are horrendous. Um yeah, like, asterisk Bank of America. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
Totally
totally.
haven't done that. No, 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 no. No. Or asterisk Wells Fargo. Asterisk Chase Bank.
How often should you change a password?
Ideally. Okay, in the
Yeah,
IT world,
perfect
okay,
world.
when I worked in corporate IT, or when worked in corporate healthcare in IT, um, the people that I worked with would get so frustrated because they're like, "Why do you make me change my password every 90 days?" And I tell them,
Yeah.
90 days is the longest I can even push it out. Like, be grateful
Yeah.
that it's every 90 days and not every 30. Because
Oh, yeah.
ideally, you do wanna be updating your passwords pretty frequently, like at least every 90 days. Um, because password breaches happen all the time. Like I'm sure you get notifications about them constantly. Like, oh, we had a breach in our system, and your
All the
your
time.
login information may have been compromised. So they recommend that you change your password or whatever. But if you just have a habit of changing your password every 90 days, like that makes it easier. I will give you a little I guess shortcut for it. It's still not the most secure thing to do, but if you are the type of person that's like, I cannot remember my password all the time, like I can barely remember a password that I type in every single day. um if you get into the habit of changing your password every 90 days, you can have it set up to where all of your passwords, like the core part of your password, is the same every single time. I always recommend phrases or a combination, like two words that don't go together. Like, they don't make sense to anybody else, but to you it makes sense, like those two words to go together.
Mhm.
So you have those two words that go together, and then you do the month. So, like, let's say it's blue kangaroo. I don't know. Blue
Yes.
kangaroo
Yeah.
0923. And then in 3 months or 90 days, you change it to blue kangaroo 1223. And then 3 months
Mm.
from there, blue kangaroo 30324. So you see how it's still the same core password. All you have to
Yeah.
remember is the
Yeah.
month that you had changed it. So that's a tip that I can give you. Like I said, it's not the most secure thing to do.
No, but
Obviously,
it's
you
an
wanna make
interesting
sure it's
tip.
complicated, but it's a way for you to remember that, okay, every just remember the month that you changed your password, and then 3 months from there, change the numbers. And, you bypass all of those. You can't use the same password that you've used before.
Oh, right. Totally. I think that the breach thing has become so rampant that I almost don't even pay attention anymore. I
Yeah.
just wait to check my bank account and see if something bad's happened. And I only say that because I bet I manage at least 500 passwords easily, without exaggeration, because of team passwords and
Mhm.
all of those kind of things. At least, right?
Yeah.
Because now everything forces you to log in. So you go to Target, anywhere you shop, you obviously
Mhm.
have a password,
Mhm.
right? Um, half the time when you want to read something these days, you have to log in to get
Yep.
the good stuff, right?
Mhm.
So like if you want to go to
Everything's
medium.com, you got to log
gated.
in.
Yep.
That's it. That's the right word. Everything is gated. So
And
now you have
the
all of
key
those
is your
passwords.
the key is your password or an email address.
Exactly. So all of these things get breached sometime. Not all of these things, but things get constantly I mean,
Yeah.
I'm looking at I have probably 20 tabs open on my Chrome right
Oh,
now
I
on
can't
the
even count how
one
many
that we're
tabs I have
talking on.
open.
Yeah. And so I know, let's see, I'm going to do a literal count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different things that I'm currently logged into in just this window.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah,
So
I
that's
was
just
gonna
15
say
passwords right there.
that's one window, multiple tabs, right? So my
Right.
setup, the way I have my setup for
Yes.
work-related purposes is every window. So I have a Mac. And you can have multiple
Mhm.
desktops on it. I can't remember if you can do that on Windows, but if you can, then this is
I'm
how
not
I
sure.
segment everything. Like every single desktop is a client. So
Right.
I have tons of separate desktops. And then for every single desktop, I open an instance of my browser that is only associated with that client.
Right.
So once again, the desktops themselves is not a password that I have to remember, but every single browser instance is connected to
Mhm.
a separate login. So I have a user login
Right.
and password for every single client, right? That's how I
Right.
keep it separated. Now, to a lot of people, they see that and they're like, that's so much work. But you know what? The instances of me accidentally logging into another client's account while I'm supposed to be working on a different client's account has drastically decreased because I have segmented it. So I have to physically segment my desktops, my workspaces, so that I don't cross contaminate. I don't go
Yeah,
into
totally.
another client's active campaign and set up an email that's supposed to be, for this other client that's healthcare related, but the one I actually sent it to was the one that's related to like a security company. Two different industries,
Right.
right?
That could
Like it
be
doesn't make any
tragic.
sense.
Yeah.
So that happens. But that's what happens when you don't separate all of the different things that you have access to, or you don't separate them into sandboxes, right? Like this sandbox is only for this
Yeah.
client, or this sandbox is only for all my personal stuff that's related to utilities. This sandbox is my personal stuff that's related to all of my fun logins or shopping or whatever, right? I think it's so important to do that, but it is a lot of work. Once again, not gonna
Right.
lie, it's not easy. It is a lot of work, but you put that work in the beginning and it pays off in the long run because then it makes things much easier to manage. It'll make it easier for the situation that you're in right now, which is now I know what email addresses are associated with what things. And then I can
Mhm.
easily
Mhm.
go in and just log into all of them and then update my email address, right? Now,
Right.
for companies, for businesses, this is why I am such a stickler for when you sign up for apps, tools, mailing lists, whatever it may be, as a business. I always recommend you have a central email address that you use as a distribution inbox, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
that distribution inbox, if it's just, it's you, me, myself, and I is the company, then that's fine. Create an alias. And the alias is usually something like admin at, or operations at, or newsletters at, whatever you want it to be. But you have this one central distribution box that everyone can access, so that when you're doing two-factor authentications, you're not constantly having to email the one person whose email address it's associated with to get that authentication code, because that email gets distributed to everybody who has been granted access to it, right?
Right.
Similar reasoning for when somebody leaves the company. So
Mhm.
it's not associated with just that one person's email account. It is associated with the distribution inbox, and you can just remove that user. Or when you deactivate their account, it automatically removes them. So you don't even have to worry about that step, right? But having
Right.
a central distribution inbox that logins are associated with makes it so much easier, because now when you sign up for stuff, you don't have to sit there and think about, well, whose email address am I going to connect this account with? Because you already know we only ever sign up to things with the operations at, or the admin at inbox.
Right. That makes sense. So if it's, let's say it's someone that doesn't have a business, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're just signing up for things willy nilly on their own personal. Do you think it's useful to have like maybe two Gmail accounts, one that's almost your admin Gmail account and then one that's your personal Gmail account?
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. So I actually just recommended that for my husband recently.
Oh, really?
Well, because so his personal email address is kind of his name, but not. And people get
Okay.
confused because they think that he just misspelled it when he fills out forms. They just think, oh, he misspelled his name, or he misspelled his
Oh,
email address, and then they autofill it for him. Um, so
yeah.
I'm trying not to tell everyone what his email address is.
Yeah, I understand.
But
Yeah.
it's essentially like it's a shortened version of his name, right? It's just a shortened version of
Right.
his name, but then they see it and they're like, "Oh, he just forgot to fill in the rest." So they fill in the rest. And so I told
Right.
him, "You need to claim that email address. You need to claim that account and then have it set up to where, like I said before, have it set up to where it forwards you emails from that inbox into the one that you actually use. That way you don't miss anything, because that's what was happening. He was missing like notifications from his doctor's office because they had automatically filled out like the full name instead of just the shortened version of the name. And they were sending it to an email address that didn't exist.
Yeah.
So thankfully, that email address was available. He claimed it, and now he's got it set up to where if somebody sends it to the wrong one, he will still get it. Um, having so if managing two inboxes though is just too time consuming for you, right? Like just that's so yucky or
Yeah.
whatever. Depending on your email provider, some of them allow you to do like aliases. So
Okay.
like if you have like your name, so let's say your email address is renee@gmail.com, and then you go to Bed Bath and Beyond or Bath and Body Works or whatever. You go to a
Mhm.
store and they're like, "Would you like to sign up for our rewards program?" And you're like, "Yes, I would love to sign up for your rewards program because I love getting free stuff and I love earning rewards because I spend so much money here." And so instead of giving them
Mhm.
renee@gmail.com, you can send them Renee plus, like the plus symbol, Renee plus promo
Mhm.
at gmail.com. And it'll still come to
Oh.
you because the plus means that it's an alias, but at the core, it's that Renee@gmail.com. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's
Yeah. So
interesting.
once again, it depends on your email provider. What I normally do is I do that. Like I specify like the plus
Mhm.
and then promo. There are some systems, though, for various retailers that have become smart to that. And they don't accept anything, they don't accept email addresses that have a symbol. Um,
Oh.
yeah. So what you can do if you have an established email address and you're just like, my inbox is insane, because I can tell you right now, like my personal inbox, I'm looking at it. I have 47 unread messages in my personal inbox. People see that and they're like,
Mm.
how? How do you only have 47 unread messages in your personal inbox? Well,
Yeah,
that's
that's
because
impressive.
if you scroll down, I have different folders. I have a folder for promotions and I have a folder for updates. My updates folder has 2048. My
I
promotions,
just looked. My personal email is 17,754 unread emails.
that yeah. So that's normal. That's like a
Yeah.
normal person. That's what it looks like for
Right.
them. I I like to think that I'm normal, but I'm not.
No. That's why
Like
we're having this conversation.
yeah, I hyperfixate on certain things, and this happens to be one of the things I hyperfixate on. But yeah, what I've done is I've created filters inside of my personal inbox, and I do this inside of my work inbox too. But I have created filters that anything any email I receive that has the word unsubscribe in it, because legally, any marketing emails you receive needs to have the ability for you to unsubscribe from the list. So if it has the words unsubscribe in it, it gets filtered into my promotions or updates tab.
That is fucking brilliant.
So it,
By
it
the
doesn't
way,
even
I'm not
hit my
convinced
inbox.
unsubscribe works. I'm not
Huh?
convinced. I unsubscribe from things constantly, and I still get all the damn emails.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
same. Yeah. Now, so I can tell you a little bit as to why that happens sometimes, like why it takes a while for you to actually get dropped off from a mailing list or a marketing list. The reason is because
Mhm.
when these big companies, they'll set up marketing campaigns that have multiple emails in it, right? And when you're pulled into
Right.
it, um, it has to go through the whole thing, and certain actions have to happen for you to like complete the campaign. So it could be a 3-month long campaign that they're doing because they're
Oh,
promoting a new
that makes
product.
sense.
And so even if you hit
Yeah.
unsubscribe, you're still kind of stuck in it until
Yeah. Okay.
it gets to either because I like to put I like to create pullouts inside of campaigns,
Mm-hmm.
like so they're pullout checkpoints. So before you send the next email, check, did this person purchase? If they did, pull them out of the sequence. Did this person unsubscribe? If they did, pull them out of the list. So I create those because I
Yeah.
hate getting stuck in people's marketing campaigns, but not every single company does the same thing.
Brand. Yeah.
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 So
Okay.
that's a reason why you could be stuck in a loop or in a campaign where you're still receiving emails and it's like, but I already unsubscribed. Yeah, you've unsubscribed from any future marketing campaigns. But if you were put
Yeah, that
into
makes so much
a
sense. Yeah.
marketing campaign, you're going to get stuck in there until it's finished, or if they have created a like a pull-out checkpoint.
Got it.
So just
Okay. The
FYI, this is the kind
unsubscribe
of
tip is
stuff that
amazing.
I just burrow down, and I'm like, oh, nerd out
I
about all of this.
know. It's so cool. Okay. So the unsubscribe thing is really interesting. So let me ask you this question. Let's say that there's somebody that's brand new to the internet. This is their day. They're just getting in the internet. And
Don't do
what
it.
would you say they should? Okay. Beyond that, I agree, by the way. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Beyond that, what would you say for the first time somebody is going to start writing down a password? Like if you could start off with a brand new baby and say, this is how you should do passwords. This is how you should keep up with them.
Oh my gosh. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, it's a good question.
that is an amazing question, because usually my experience is not the brand new baby, or that is the ideal scenario, right? That's the unicorn,
Right.
that they have nothing.
Yes.
Although no, because even my freaking kids, they have email
I was about to
addresses.
say what about your kids?
They
Oh,
have email addresses. They've signed up
too
for
late for
stuff.
them.
It's too late for
It's
them.
too late for them.
Yeah. Yeah. So for somebody who is like super green,
Yeah.
and they have no digital footprint. I mean, honestly, the first thing I would recommend is to sign up for, I mean, because that's a password already, but to sign up for the soon to be released password manager that for the company that we are working with. But if not them, then just a password manager, and then go ahead and create your categories already. Like create your categories
Yes.
of, this is work related stuff, this is banking information, this is utilities, like home utilities, this is streaming services. Like create your categories already. Social media, although social media, you could subcategorize that too. But like
Yeah.
create
But
the
that's a really good idea.
create the foundation of what makes it easy for you to remember, because that's the other thing. We can provide like templates all day long, but if
Mhm.
your brain doesn't work the same way, it's not going to stick, because it doesn't make sense to you in that way. Which is the reason why anytime I give somebody a template, I always tell them, use this as inspiration. A template shouldn't be like what you're trying to box yourself into. A template is your starting off point. Like take it and then
Mhm.
tweak it
You know what
to
this
the
makes
way
me
that
think
you
of?
use it.
Do you remember that this was before the podcast, but a conversation at least I think so. A conversation that you and I had about organizing our house. Remember, we had a
Uh-huh.
lot of conversations about that because you and I both got new houses right around the same time. And
Yeah.
so we had a lot of conversations about how you organize your garage. And because I was going to start organizing my garage. So we were just having a lot of conversations about
Yes, we were.
literal, like, I mean, it was ridiculous, really, but it was also a lot of fun. But I mean, literally
Yeah.
going through, and you would send me a picture and I'd send you a picture, and we were going back and forth about micro details, of how we
Yep.
each organize our house. And it's kind of the same thing if you think about it. The concept is kind of the same, right? Where do
Yeah.
you keep your tools? Where do you put your hammer, right?
Yes.
Because you have where you put your
Yes.
tools, and then you have
Yep.
where you put your hammer. And where
Yeah.
you put your hammer is not going to be the same place that I put my hammer. Even if we put our tools in the same far right-hand corner of our garage,
Yep.
where your hammer is going to be different than my hammer. And that's just because that's how it could be because that's how tall we are, or how we access
Right.
information, or because of the size of our car. All of it's going to be
Yep.
different. Um, but the generalities are the same. So to your point, the template is a guide. It's inspiration point to get the conversation
Exactly.
started, which is what we did when
Yeah.
we were discussing where to put things,
Well, and we've
in our
talked about
houses.
it before too. You and I have said that the importance of defining what the meaning is, right? Like, so your definition of
Yes,
tools and my definition of tools could be very different.
absolutely. That's really good point. That's so true. Um,
So
right. No, it's
somebody's
so true.
definition of social media could be very different to somebody else's definition of social media. So you want to make sure that you organize your things to what makes sense to you, because you're going to be the one
Mhm.
accessing it. So if it doesn't make sense to you, then you've just made yourself a generically organized thing that you still can't use.
Right, and you could even I remember when we worked at the Screw, that always sounds funny when I say that, but Screw the 9 to
I know,
5.
right?
Right,
We'll
um,
explain that later.
yeah, exactly, we'll explain that some other time. But anyway, when we were writing processes and procedures, you would put, like, if I can get this right, like, I should know this because I've done processes, but, like, the purpose, right?
Yes.
At the top, it would be the purpose, and then you might
Uh-huh.
have an explainer, and then the processes and procedure. You could do that for yourself too, where you
Yes.
put a note to yourself of, here's why I did this, and this is what this is. Um, don't
Mhm.
be afraid to make notes to yourself as well, I guess is what I'm trying to
Oh,
say.
yeah. Yeah, because I absolutely make notes to myself all the time, because
Mhm,
what makes sense to me in the moment that I'm doing something may not make sense to me later, because of things additional information I receive later on, or, like, just different perspectives or whatever it may be. So I'll make notes to myself. My husband does this all the time too. Like, I think what he does is brilliant, because every year he works the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo here in Houston, Texas. It's the biggest rodeo um,
mhm.
on this part of Texas, because I think Dallas has their own rodeo too, right?
When you say he works the rodeo, do you mean he's a bull rider?
No. No, he is the lighting designer. He's one of the lighting designers for the concerts that happen at the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Isn't that crazy? The
I couldn't
the
believe this.
rodeo has concerts for huge artists. Like, there's so many artists I have seen, not just country. But, like, I've seen Bruno Mars at rodeo because of him. I went and saw Fergie there. Maroon
Cool.
5 was there. Like, just popular artists
Right, right,
come and
yeah.
do a concert. So they do a rodeo concert. But so every year they pretty much, it's a well-oiled machine. Like, they've got it handled. They know what needs to be brought in. They know how to build things. They know how to program things. But every single year, there's always something that gets changed or tweaked, small
Mhm,
enough that it's not something that needs to be added to, like, the grand plan, right? But big enough that it affects them in their department if they don't document that change that happened,
right.
or if they don't document. So what he does is, when they're loading in, so load in is when they bring in all the equipment, they start building the trusses for the stage, for the lights to hang off of, and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm,
right? Or not just the lights, but also the speakers and things like that. So as they're loading in, he'll take pictures or videos of things as they're coming in, and then he'll make a note for himself in a document that is their rodeo document or whatever, that says, last year it was a pain in the ass to get cables run to this specific area of the stage. So now when he opens that document up, when they're getting ready to load in, he can take a look and say, and immediately see, oh yeah, this was the part of the stage where it was really difficult to get cables in. And this is what we did to make it easier. And so now he's saved himself and the rest of the team, however long it took them last time, to try to figure out how to resolve the issue that they came across at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. You know
So,
what it makes me think of? Go ahead. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, so documenting and making notes for yourself for even simple things like that is so important. Like it makes a huge difference.
We have this Swiffer duster. I'm sure you've seen them. They're pretty common, right?
Yeah.
So we have this Swiffer duster, and for about 3 weeks it was missing in the house.
Okay.
And we were determined to find it instead of buying another one. And one of us had put it in a really smart place. Do you ever do that where you put something away and you're like,
Yes.
this is
All
brilliant.
the time.
This is
Yes.
so smart. I will always remember that it is right here because this is
Mhm.
the smartest thing I've ever done in my life was
Yep.
put this thing away in this place. But of
Yeah.
course, you can't find it again after that. You were so smart and so amazing in the moment that you didn't need to document it because there's no way you would ever forget, right?
Yeah. I do that with
Um,
money. Like if I
that's
have
amazing,
cash,
first of all.
because I don't have cash all the time, but when I have cash, then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to put this cash right here. And it makes so much sense. Like it's so smart for me to put it there because it's not so obvious that, anybody could just
Mhm.
see it and take it, but it's also not so hidden that I'm going to forget where it is. Yeah. Every single time I'm like, where the fuck did I put that cash?
Yeah, totally. Exactly. Yeah. So I think we all have those things because generally speaking, whenever those, I think it's mostly banks that seem to have this. It's like you have Bank of America is like this, where you have your login email, your username, your password, then you have a special key, and your childhood street, your best friend, and there's like
Mm-hmm.
15 things. And they're all
Yeah.
highly personal to you. So you think, oh, of course, I'm going to remember all of these. But then you're like, wait, who did I say my childhood best friend was? What was that
Yeah.
street? What's the street
Mm-hmm.
that I actually grew up on? Because, I moved around a lot. So, and then all at the time that you're doing all of these things, you think to yourself, or at least this is just me, I'm definitely going to remember this because this is all so obvious.
Yep.
And then, of
Yep.
course, a year later, none of it's obvious.
No.
Yeah.
I actually I made the mistake because once again I thought, "Oh my god, I'm being so smart. I'm just so freaking brilliant. Like I'm a genius. This is the smartest thing I've ever thought of in my entire life." And then I forgot it later. But
Yeah.
I had the bright idea of, you know what? These security questions, people that know me well enough, they can answer these. Like they know this
Mm-hmm.
information about me. So then I was like, I'm not even gonna make answers relevant to whatever the question is.
Gonna make a persona.
Yeah. So I had a specific answer for whatever questions, but it wasn't exact. So if it said, "What street did you grow up on?" my answer would have been green microphone.
Yeah, I've done stuff like
Because
that.
in
It's
in my
terrible
head it's
idea.
like, yeah, anything related to a street, green, grass is green. Yeah, this was my thought process. Grass is green and grass is found next to the street, right? And then just
Right.
a random other word. Yeah, so I thought I was being so smart. I was not smart because then I couldn't remember my associations later on. So then I had
Yeah.
to do the
Oh
whole
my god.
the whole process of resetting everything, which is a huge pain in the butt. And then I resorted to going back to, okay, well, let's just go to the actual answers. But I will say there is one question that it was an accident. I put down like I misunderstood the question.
Mhm.
Because why not, right?
Yeah.
Like I misunderstood the question and it was something stupid. Like instead of like the name of the high school, it was like the city of the high school or whatever. Cause in my head, that's how I read it. thinking, yeah,
Oh,
everybody has multiple high schools that they attended, and so it's just asking like which city was the high school, or what was the city that your high school was in, not what was the name of your high school. But it was one of
right.
those, like, I made the mistake because I misunderstood the question, but moving forward, that is now how I answer those security questions.
For the first year that I lived in this house, we have ADT, and we have this, we have the ADT alarm, and then the front
Uh-huh.
door has a key code, and it's all
Yeah.
associated. So when they came here, when we first moved in, they came here. It was a total disaster, the setup. They sent like 4 people that were training. It was truly crazy. It was a wreck. Nobody knew what they were doing, and it was just a complete disaster. So
Sure.
whenever they set up the keypad for our front door, we thought they had basically they asked us questions. So like if you said, what do you sit on, and I said a chair, they put in what do you sit on as the answer. And for 6 months we could not get ADT to give us the code to the front door, because every
Oh
time I would give them the
no.
answer, they would say no,
They're like,
that's the
that's wrong.
question. Yeah, and they would say no, that's wrong. And so I got in this loop with them, and
Oh my
because of all of
gosh.
that, because it was during COVID, they couldn't send someone else out, and they were like, well, we're going to have to send someone out because you can't answer any of the questions. Like
It's like, okay,
literally
then send
after.
somebody out.
Yeah, but because it was COVID, it was like they were months behind. And so
Yeah.
for like we got in this weird loop of this question answer thing, and I was like, well, there has to be a way to reset all this. And they were like, yeah, but every reset, the answer is the question, but you
Oh
have to
my
tell us what the
gosh.
question is. Yeah. And so it was like this weird,
That is
ridiculous thing.
so crazy. Oh my goodness. You
So
know,
I understand what you're saying. Sometimes you get too creative.
yeah,
It
yeah,
goes
you get
nuts.
too creative, you think you're too smart, and then it's
Mhm.
so what it really comes down to is just like with everything in life, right? Like simplicity is key. That's the best way to do it.
Yes.
So what we do is we have this for both personal and business. We have a Bible, not the Bible that
Oh,
you think. It's like it's like
okay.
this is our house Bible, and
Oh,
then
yeah.
in business, like this is our company Bible, right?
Right.
And so the Bible is basically our reference to everything. And I have it the way that I built it out, something as simple as a spreadsheet. So like if you create a password protected Excel sheet, like if you're one of the lucky ones that still has a local, like like you loaded the software Excel onto your computer.
Oh, I didn't even know that was still a thing.
No, it's not. Everything's in the cloud now. Like you have
Yeah.
to
Okay.
connect everything to
Yeah.
Office 365 or whatever. But I have a computer that still has Office 2016 or whatever it was. So there is a local copy of Excel on that workstation. And what I did was I built our Bible on that because I can password protect
Mm.
that file. And
Mhm.
basically, it's all of our accounts in the
It's
event
like
that
in a
something, because
vacuum.
I am, huh?
It's like in a vacuum at that point. That's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
exactly. So, like I am the holder of all accounts.
Mm.
And by that I mean like I manage the access to,
Mhm.
like all of the utilities and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm the one that records and maintains it because my husband's like, I don't even want to look at the bills, like they stress me out. And I'm like, that's fine. I will take care of everything. Um and that, by the way, that is an agreement that we came up with. It's not a, dedicated role between a male and a female. Like we
Yeah.
decided together. I'm just throwing it out there that we're not doing like roles and things like that. It's just I like taking care of stuff like that, and I feel like I manage it better. He does not like looking at bills at all. He doesn't like paying them. It physically hurts him. It gives him
Well,
a headache when he does it.
and listen, we can clarify something too, just to prove the fact that you guys did not have roles. Who cooked dinner last night?
He did.
Right. Who
And the
cooked
night
dinner the
before.
night before?
And the night
Yeah,
before.
exactly. Right. So yeah, you
Who
guys are
did
definitely
laundry
not
last? He
traditional.
did.
Right. Non-traditional as it comes for a straight couple. That's all I can say to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So
So,
we don't fall into the traditional roles, right? Like
no.
we have a discussion and make a decision based on what we talked about. And usually it's whatever I like to do are the things that I get to be in charge of. The things that he likes to do, he gets to be in charge of. Like I could care less about the type of TV we have. He will spend
You know,
months
yeah.
researching TVs before he replaces it.
I think that's really interesting, and I have to go soon because I have another meeting, but, um, I have to say what makes that even more interesting about you guys is that you've been together most of your life. So you guys are high
Yeah.
school sweethearts. And so you
Yeah.
would think high school sweethearts might have fallen into the traditional trap, but you guys
Right.
didn't. And
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting,
Mhm.
um, that you
I
guys
agree.
evolved into that. I think that's very interesting, which is probably why you guys have done so well because you
Yeah.
don't go anything traditional at all, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the times that we have tried the traditional route, like both of us were just miserable. We were both like, this doesn't make sense. This is uncomfortable, or like this isn't. It didn't align with what we wanted or what we had envisioned. So
Right. Or who
um
you are as individuals as well.
Yeah, so whatever works for us, like he's out of town pretty frequently. So I mow the yard. And I remember in our old house when our neighbor when the wife would be the one mowing the yard, I used to think, man, is her husband so lazy? Like
Yeah.
just because of the traditional gender roles that had been ingrained into my head, I used to think like, man, is her husband just so lazy that she's the one that mows the yard? And then after I talked to her about it, she was like, no, I really like mowing the yard. Like it's kind of like a zen time for me. It's a time away from the
Mhm.
kids, and like it's repetitive, so she doesn't even have to think. So she enjoyed it. And that was kind of like one of the times where I was like, well, I wonder if I would enjoy mowing the yard. Like I've never had to do it before because growing up, because I was the girl and the only
Yeah.
girl, I have two younger brothers. It was never my responsibility to mow the yard. So I didn't know if I liked it or not. I just assumed that, oh, it's outside in the yard, it's yard work. That's boys' work. That's a boy's job.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah,
look at
totally.
me now. I love gardening. I love getting my hands dirty. Like I'm constantly, like repotting things and bringing plants inside and all that kind of stuff. And I know that's a little bit different to like actual gardening, but I'm also the one that goes outside and I'm cutting down branches because I'm like, we need to open up this space. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, you're not afraid to try, at least. And I
No.
think that's
Yeah,
but I think that's part of the entrepreneurial spirit too, you know?
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So
well, I
I
have to
forgot what my
go.
original point was. So
I have no idea, and that's okay. So,
yeah, we went windy, but
oh,
that's
the
okay because
Bible. You were talking about the Bible.
Oh, yes. So we have a Bible for home and business, but the Bible has a list of all of the accounts that we have. Depending on it's got a URL to like how to get to the login,
Mhm.
the actual account number, um, and then how to find the password. Because
Mhm.
usually, like me and my husband, once again, we have a core password, right? So
Right.
usually when we're like, hey, how do I log into this? Our responses to each other, especially if it's over text, is it's my email and the usual password. So when he
Right.
says the usual password, I know what that is. Or it'll be it's my email and the usual password plus an additional symbol or a number or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So we can kind of communicate cryptically when it comes to sharing passwords
Mhm.
because we know what the core password is. But
Right.
that's how our Bible is set up. And the reason that we have this is inspiration from actually when we bought this house. When we bought this house, the previous owners gave us a literal house Bible. It's a binder, and
Mhm.
it has all of the original documents of when the house was built because our house was not brand new.
Mhm.
We bought it from previous owners, but it has the original documents from when the house was originally built, and then it has the instruction manuals for every single major appliance that they change. So we have the instruction manuals for the dishwasher when they replaced it, the fridge, the washer and dryer, the HVAC unit. And so when we replaced the HVAC unit, because it was original to the house, the instruction manual that we were given with it, we went ahead and just added that into the house Bible. And I thought that was so brilliant, because now there's no question of, well, what brand is this? Like, what brand is our dishwasher now that we have to replace it? Or how do I troubleshoot this dishwasher, but there's no like model number right in front? Do I have to pull the whole thing out to figure it out? Like, how do I identify what the
Yeah.
correct instructions are? So just the fact that they provided that for us, I was like, that is so smart. Like, we need something like that just for life in general. And so we do. We have it for home
That's
and we have
awesome.
it
I'm going to
for
do that.
business.
I already have it for the house, because since we did move into a brand new
You
house,
built,
they literally
yeah.
just handed us everything. So
Yeah.
Andy just went and put it into a Bible. She basically did that, and
Yeah.
it's been really handy. So I should do
It's
that for life.
amazing too, because when you start utilizing different vendors like service providers and things like that, we
Mhm.
recently had to change, like we had to replace the motor of our garage, and in the Bible was the service provider it was the information for the last person that serviced the garage springs. And
Oh,
so instead of me looking for a garage repair person, I was like, oh, well, let's see if this company is still around, right? So I called them, and they were, and he was like, oh, well, what's the address? I gave him the address, and he was like, oh yeah, so it looks like when I was out there back in 2018, I replaced the coils and then the track. And I'm like, see, that's freaking amazing that you
that's
already
awesome.
have that, right? So that's the reason why we do that too. But we have notes, once again, of like, this was the last time this was replaced or maintained or serviced or whatever. So now we have actual data, and record keeping of the last time something was done to something in the house, and same thing with the business. The last time we um, updated like our registration, or when we renewed our DBA, whatever it may be,
Sure.
we
Yeah.
have all of that documented. So if I were to get hit by a bus and I'm in a coma, and everyone's like, oh, well, we need to find out like what needs to be taken care of this month. Well, go check the Bible. You can reference everything that you need inside of the Bible.
You are optimized.
Oh, I love that word, optimized.
Yeah,
It's
you are
it's so
optimized.
like well, I
Yeah,
live in worst case scenarios. I know that sounds really awful and stressful and anxiety
but it's also your
riddled, and it
job.
is. It is my job. That's exactly, like, I have basically, my job is risk management, right? Like,
Mhm.
what is the
Uh,
worst case scenario and how do we either prepare for it or prevent it?
right.
Because some worst case scenarios you can't prevent. So you just have to make sure that you're prepared for it, because I mean, we talked about this last time, like we have business owners who pass away and their spouse and team have no
Mhm.
idea what to do next.
Right.
So having something in place where this is what you do in the event of an emergency, or in the event of the worst case scenario, this is what you need to do. Even if it's as simple, that's the reason why wills exist, right? If the
Yeah,
worst case
absolutely.
happens to you, to your life, the you're having a will is making sure that your wishes are carried out after death.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, not to get like dark and morbid on everyone, but I think it's very important to plan for those scenarios. And then of course things will come up that you didn't plan for, but at least you have a starting off point. Once again, it's just a direction,
That's right.
because there's that quote that I love and I can never remember.
I love those kind of
It's like
quotes.
one of my favorite quotes. I don't remember what it is. No, one of my favorite quotes is something along the lines of, we feel overwhelmed not because we don't know what to do, but because we don't know what to do next.
Oh, that's good.
So overwhelm doesn't come from not knowing what to do. It comes from not knowing what the next step is going to be.
Right.
Because you
I think that,
could
yeah.
know, like, this is what needs to happen, but it's that very first step of, okay, well, if all of that needs to happen, what do we need to do right now to get there? That's where the overwhelm comes in.
We should start writing it down. Like, if you're planning something big, write down the first step so that when you get
Yes.
to that big thing, you know what the first step is.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Well, we're going to have to cut it here because we could talk all day.
we could.
Yeah.
We'll probably do a part 2 because I feel like not just password management, but just like cybersecurity. Once again, not just for business, but also for your personal cybersecurity. This is a really important topic, and it's super relevant for right now with the rise of like AI and all these cyber attacks. Like, there's a really great book that I'm reading. It's pretty dense. It's called The Dawn of the Code War. It's written by former Attorney General, I can't remember his name now, but it's called the Dawn of the Code War, and it is it's how federal agencies have been fighting cyber attacks and, like, focusing on cybersecurity longer than you think that they have.
Wow. Interesting. Okay. Well,
It
you
is
should come
so
with some notes
interesting.
because that sounds really
I will.
interesting. I would also
So that'll be part 2.
discuss the personal Bible further too. I think that would be really interesting because I have some questions about that, but I'll save it for the next time.
That sounds good. All right. Well, then we'll end it here, and we'll continue with part 2 of personal Bibles and cybersecurity and password management.